I think the main thing that fascinated me about playing Janet Horne was the fact that she was a very modern woman, although the play is set 200 odd years ago. That she was a woman that was stuck in a world that was very constrictive, especially for women. She was just worn down by poverty and by superstition and by the sort of mean-spiritedness of her neighbours and the world she lived in, but yet she had an imagination that just was boundless, that she'd physically lived in other places, that she'd lived in Italy and seen another life, and she was aware of how constricted she was and how small her world was, and had a desire to fly away from it, which she talks about a lot, about escaping it and flying away, and how frustrated she is that because of her daughter and just circumstance and the time and the world she lives, that she's so trapped there. One of the most important choices I felt I had to make playing Janet was to decide whether she was actually a witch. And I think most people, when they see the play, come down on the side that she's probably not a witch. But for me personally, whatever anyone else thinks, I decided right at the beginning I had to make a choice. I don't know that it would have been something that would have been obvious to anyone watching, but I had to know inside me what I thought Janet Horne was. So I decided, actually halfway through rehearsals, that she's not a witch, but she's magic. And what I mean by that is that she wasn't in the conventional sense of a witch. She wasn't somebody that used the black art. She wasn't someone that cast spells and did those things. But did she have wisdom and discernment and insight? Could she read a room? Could she read a person? Did she know how to use herbs? Did she know how to curse? To speak into somebody, to see someone's weak point and to speak life or speak death into that? Yes. So I think that was one of my key decisions that I had to make right at the beginning, was she a witch and was she magic? And the two are not the same thing. The hardest part of playing Janet was marrying the text, actually. Some of the pieces of text are very prosaic, very normal conversational chit-chat between neighbours, or just a conversation, and then it just switches from that immediately, from that into big passages of poetry. And at first that's quite daunting, especially when you first get a script and you put it on your feet and you just start to speak it. You can get in your own way a wee bit. But I think what you have to do with Rona's writing, especially in this piece, is trust it. So a bit like Shakespeare, you can get a wee bit carried away with the metre and with the poetry and with how you should be saying it. And I think sometimes you just have to stop all that and speak it and trust it. And a case in point is at the top of the second half, there's a scene where Janet's in the jail cell, and it opens with this long speech where Janet's describing the cold and the animals that are all hibernating. And when we came to rehearse that was the last thing I learned before we put the show on. I couldn't learn. I actually got to a point when I said, I can't learn this. I actually can't learn it, and I hate it. I actually hate this. And can we not cut it? Can we not cut it? I hated it. And now it's actually one of my favourite bits. And I went from thinking I'll never learn it to now I think that if you cut me open, you'd actually see the lines, "It's cold now, Douglas, there's a crackle of frost in the ground," written in my bones, because once it goes in, and I think that is a thing with Rona's writing, some of it is difficult to learn, but it's easy to remember. It's like it goes into your DNA. And if you get out your own way and stop analysing, and I'm terrible for analysing and being critical, I'm going, why does it say that? And why doesn't it say that? And if I was there, I'd do that. And if you just stop that nonsense and say what's there, it goes in, because she doesn't ever put an extra word in, and she doesn't leave a word out that needs to be there. She's an amazing writer, and if you just trust her writing and say what she's written, it works.